This video is intended to give you a general overview on how to tear down a 911 motor, in this case one out of an SC. We're starting with the engine out of the vehicle and the fuel injection system removed. While it's not covered in this video, you can follow the link provided at the end for additional assistance with all those tasks. Here's the starting point in this video. Now that the engine is out of the car, it is recommended that you use an engine stand to perform your disassembly work. This engine was disassembled on blocks of wood because all the engine stands were being used to rebuild other motors at this time. The first recommended step is to remove the fuel injection from the top of the motor. In most cases, it can be removed as a single unit after unbolting the intake manifolds from the top of the cylinder head. Again, please follow the link provided at the end of this video for additional assistance with that task. Here the fuel injection is removed and the long block motor is exposed. This particular engine is a 1982 911 SC motor and is being torn down for a complete rebuild. Despite the fact that we will be having the heads rebuilt, it is still good practice to plug the intakes to the heads with paper towels to prevent debris from falling in there. Tackle the chain end of the motor first, removing the motor mount, chain covers, and the chain tensioners. Throughout the entire teardown process, keep careful track of all the nuts, bolts, screws, and other parts you remove. I suggest you use plastic bags labeled with permanent marker in order to keep track of where all the parts came from. Removal of the cams requires the use of two special tools, a Porsche cam holder tool and a 46mm clawfoot wrench. Both tools are absolutely necessary to remove the cams. Don't try and get around using them. So much force will be needed to remove the large 46mm nut that you will probably need an assistant, and even then it will be a difficult task. Once the cam nut has been removed, the head studs, shown by the arrow, can be loosened and the cam towers removed. The removal of the head stud nut requires an extra long 10mm Allen head tool that can reach down into the recesses of the head. Sometimes these nuts are relatively heavily rusted and corroded and can be very difficult to remove. Spray some WD-40 or another penetrating oil on the difficult nuts and let them soak overnight before trying to remove them from the studs. Once the head studs are removed, you can pull off the cam towers and the heads as a single unit. In this image, the cam tower is upside down with the exhaust ports on the top. Visible in the first head is extensive oil residue by the blow-by area caused by a broken head stud. The rocker arms can be removed by loosening up their attachment bolts in the cam towers. The rocker shafts are secured with a cap that expands when tightened, so be careful to loosen them up fully before removing them from their mounts. The heads can now simply be unbolted from the cam towers. The rocker arms and shafts need to be removed in order to reach all of the nuts that secure the heads to the cam towers. Looking at the bank of pistons and cylinders, it is obvious why this motor is coming apart. The arrows point to broken head studs. Surrounding the head studs is sludge that's left over from oil leaking out of the heads. Theoretically, there shouldn't be any oil in this area, but this motor had other problems as well. If you are shopping for an SC or a 3-liter engine, insist that your mechanic remove the valve covers during pre-purchase inspection to check for broken head studs. Slide the cylinders off of the pistons. Be gentle in this process, as they are very expensive to replace. It is the hope of most people that their pistons and cylinders are still in good enough condition to be reused, since a new set can cost a lot of money. Remove the snap rings that hold on the pistons, indicated by the white arrow. Reach in with a small screwdriver and pry the rings out of the pistons. If you are not planning on splitting the case, make sure that you don't drop the circlips down into the recesses of the engine. Cover the openings to the case with some plastic because the snap rings have a tendency to fly out when they are removed. And as always, whenever you're working, you should be wearing safety glasses. Quite possibly the hardest step of all is the removal of the head studs. Installed by the factory using Loctite, these can really be difficult to remove. Using a propane torch to heat up the case always helps, as does the use of a special collet head stud removal tool. If the stud breaks off, then you're going to be forced to remove it by different means, which we cover by following the link, or have the machine shop do it. The final step is splitting the case, and this is where it's important to have a proper engine yoke designed for these air-cooled motors. After removing all of the case fasteners, the two halves should separate with a few light taps with a rubber mallet. Do not use any tools to pry the case halves apart, as you might damage the fragile mating surfaces in the center. Make sure that you double check that you have removed all the fasteners before you start hitting the case with the mallet. The left side should be lifted off the right side of the case. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out another video in this series.